6-Minute English
from BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6-Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Sam.
And I'm Neil.
Have you heard the expression doom scrolling, Neil? It's when people spend a lot of time reading or scrolling a mobile phone or computer screen in order to read negative news stories full of doom.
I hate to admit it, but I do sometimes doom scroll.
Well, don't feel too bad, Neil, because you're not alone. Research from the University of California found that people all over the world doom scroll, regardless of culture. What's more, there may even be evolutionary reasons why we're attracted to bad news.
In this programme, we'll be investigating why we feel compelled to look at and even seek out bad news. And as usual, we'll be learning some new vocabulary as well.
But before that, I have a question for you, Neil. Doom scrolling is a very modern idea, which is only possible with the 24/7 non-stop cycle of news reporting. So according to international news agency Reuters, what has been the top global news story of 2023 so far? Is it A, the war in Ukraine, B, increasing prices and inflation, or C, Prince Harry's autobiography?
I think the answer is an issue that's affecting everyone: inflation.
Okay, Neil, I'll reveal the answer at the end of the programme. Now, it might be true that the non-stop news cycle makes doom scrolling possible, but that doesn't explain why we do it. Anthropologist Ella Al-Shamahi thinks the answer may lie in human evolution. Here she outlines the problem for BBC Radio 4 programme, Why Do We Do That?
We go searching out for bad news, looking for things that will make us feel ick inside. And so many of us do it. Is it a result of 24/7 doom on tap on our phones? Or is it some kind of compulsion that comes from somewhere way, way back?
Reading bad news stories makes us feel ick, an informal American phrase which means feel sick, often because of something disgusting or disturbing. It's a feeling caused by the fact that thanks to the internet, now we have the news on tap, easily available so that you can have as much of it as you want, whenever you want.
But Ella thinks that's not the whole story. There's another theory. Way back in human history, when we lived in caves, it seemed everything could kill us, from wild animals to eating the wrong mushroom. Knowing what the dangers were and how to avoid them was vital to our survival. And from an evolutionary perspective, survival is everything. As a result, we humans naturally pay attention to the negative stuff, something Ella calls negativity bias.
But while cavemen only knew what was happening in their local area, nowadays we know the bad news from all over the world. Here's Ella again, discussing this with her friend, TV presenter Clara Amfo, for BBC Radio 4 programme, Why Do We Do That?
You know, before it would be like, I don't know, I'm assuming you'd go to the neighbour's cave and they'd only know like the bad news from like, you know, that particular mountain.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, let me tell you about the really bad information and situation that's going on in some island somewhere. And it's just the good news doesn't make up for it.
It really doesn't. And I think trauma's romanticised, really. It doesn't kill you, makes you stronger.
Yeah.
This is a test. I think we're conditioned to believe that negative experiences shape us more than joyous ones.
Reading bad news from around the world can depress us, and Ella thinks that the little good news we do hear doesn't make up for the depressing news. To make up for something means to compensate for something bad with something good.
Good news is hard to find. In fact, Clara thinks society has romanticised bad, traumatic news. If you romanticise something, you talk about it in a way that makes it sound better than it really is. Connected to this is the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, meaning that by going through difficult experiences in life, people build up strength and resilience for the future.
Maybe it's best to stop doom scrolling altogether. But with so much bad news pouring into our mobile phones every day, it's not easy.
Okay, it's time to reveal the answer to my question, Neil. I asked you what news agency Reuters considers the top news story of 2023 so far.
And I guessed it was B, inflation.
Which was the correct answer. Although there's still plenty of time for 2023 to bring us more doom, hopefully along with a little positivity too. Okay, let's recap the vocabulary we've learned from this programme about doom scrolling, spending lots of time reading bad news stories on your phone.
Feeling ick is American slang for feeling sick, often because of something disgusting or disturbing.
When something is on tap, it's easily available so that you can have as much of it as you want.
The phrasal verb to make up for something means to compensate for something bad with something good.
When we romanticize something, we make it sound better than it is.
And finally, the saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, means that by going through difficult life experiences, people build up strength for the future.
Once again, our 6 minutes are up, but if doom scrolling's not for you, remember you can find lots of positive news stories to build your vocabulary here at 6 Minute English.
Don't forget that there is more to BBC Learning English than 6 Minute English. Why not try to improve your vocabulary through the language in news headlines? Try the news review video on our website or download the podcast.
But that's bye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Neil.
What are you reading?
A news blog. It says here that the fossil of a two-headed dinosaur has been discovered in Greece. Look at this picture.
Oh, honestly, Neil, you shouldn't believe everything you read on the internet. This story is from one of those fake news websites that float about on social media. And you aren't the only one to get taken in. Even serious news channels report these types of stories as if they were true.
Taken in means fooled by something. Well, I must admit, I did believe it. And I didn't know that fake or pretend news sites existed. How am I supposed to know what's fake and what's real? So many extraordinary things happen.
That's a good question, and actually, digital news and its effect on traditional newspapers is the subject of today's show. The thing is, if you read a traditional print newspaper like I do, you'd find stories that are more reliable, ones you can trust.
Well, enjoy your traditional print newspaper while you can, Sophie, because they're going to disappear pretty soon, the same way as the dinosaurs.
It is true that print newspapers are feeling the pinch these days, and that means not making enough money. But I will miss them if they go. Which brings me on to today's quiz question. Neil, how many national print newspapers are currently sold in the UK a day? Is it A, 70,000, B, 700,000, or C, 7 million?
Ooh, well, I'll go for A, 70,000. It can't be much more than that, surely.
Well, we'll find out whether you got the answer right or not later in the show. But moving on now, we've discussed one disadvantage of digital news, that it can be hard to distinguish a real story from a fake one, given the massive information available on the web. So, maybe you should tell us about the advantages, Neil.
Well, you can access news 24/7 and search for it on your phone or tablet without having to flip through pages of stuff you aren't interested in. It isn't all in black and white, and it isn't all about reading. You can watch and listen too, and make comments of your own.
OK, well, let's listen to Tim Luckhurst, Professor of Journalism at Kent University, to see what he thinks is important in journalism nowadays.
It doesn't matter whether your local journalist produces news on a tablet, on a mobile phone, in print, online, on television or on radio. What matters is that there should be a diversity of journalism available and that it should be provided by professional reporters whose job is to do an honest, objective job, impartially in the public interest, not simply to rant or express opinions.
Tim Luckhurst there. He says that news will be successful on any platform, digital or traditional, so long as reporters are honest and objective in their pursuit of a good story. If you're objective, it means you aren't influenced by personal feelings or opinions. If you rant, you speak in an angry, opinionated way about something.
Now, newspapers need to make money in order to pay their journalists, and with circulation falling dramatically, they need to find other ways to make newspapers pay.
A newspaper's circulation is the number of copies it distributes per day. Well, selling more advertising space is one way, isn't it?
Yes, but many advertisers are choosing to use digital platforms because they reach a wider and more targeted audience. And this is one reason why digital news is taking over. It can pay for itself through advertising.
I wouldn't mind paying more for a newspaper if I knew the quality of the journalism is good.
But increasingly, people are expecting good quality journalism for free.
Newspapers have been around since the invention of the printing press, and as chronicles, or written accounts, of people's lives are an important historical resource. Let's listen to Alex Cox, researcher at genealogy website findmypast.co.uk, talking more about this.
During the First World War, local papers always printed in memoriam columns where they'd list local dead. What a lot of them also did was they allowed relatives to submit short poems about their deceased loved ones, and some of them were 5 or 6 lines, not very long, but they're really, really quite powerful. And the paper dedicated page space to print not just one of these, but multiple. And I don't know whether a modern paper would even consider doing that today.
Deceased is another word for dead. In this case, it refers to the British soldiers who died in the First World War.
Local papers, at the time, printed poems written by the families of the dead men. Those poems, captured in print, are an important historical record of the time.
Indeed. Now, remember, Neil, I asked you, how many national print newspapers are currently sold in the UK a day? Is it A, 70,000, B, 700,000, or C, 7 million?
Yes, I remember, and I said 70,000.
Well, I'm sorry, Neil, but you are wrong. The answer is actually C, 7 million. But the numbers are falling.
Well, that's still a few million more than I thought. Now I think it must be time to hear the words we learned today. They are: taken in, fake, reliable, feeling the pinch, objective, rant, circulation, chronicles, deceased.
Well, that's the end of today's 6 Minute English. Please join us again soon.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Sam.
When you were a teenager, did your parents worry that you were watching too much television, Sam?
They used to tell me that watching too much TV would turn my eyes square, but they were only joking.
When I was growing up, there were only 3 or 4 television channels. For parents today, there are hundreds of TV channels to worry about, not to mention the internet, video games and social media. And all of it is accessible through a smartphone. No wonder parents are worried about the impact of technology on young people.
I don't think it's all bad news, Neil. In fact, in this programme, we'll be taking a look at a new report which finds little evidence to link technology with mental health problems in adolescence. That's young people who are in the process of developing from children into adults.
I'm not convinced, Sam. Think about how much time youngsters spend staring at screens every day.
True, but unlike passively watching television, today's technology is interactive, connecting teenagers to their friends around the world.
Well, maybe my quiz question will change your mind. Are you ready? On average, how many hours per day do British teenagers spend on their screens? Is it A, 5.5 hours, B, 6.5 hours, or C, 7.5 hours?
I'll say it's B, 6.5 hours.
That sounds a lot to me.
Well, whatever Neil thinks, a new study from the Oxford Internet Institute paints a more hopeful picture. The study analysed data from over 400,000 British and American teenagers and found little or no link between adolescents' tech use and mental health problems.
Listen to Gareth Mitchell and Glenn Boddington, co-presenters of BBC World Service's Digital Planet, as they discuss the report's findings.
Glenn Boddington, you've been looking at some of the findings yourself, haven't you? So what's your response so far? Were you expecting, Glenn, to see some kind of smoking gun, some kind of link that would say, here we are, here are the harms?
Not really, because I think we're at a point where teenagers are much more savvy than many adults think. So, we are at risk, all of us as journalists and research community, to assume maybe this is a much more terrible problem than we understand. Because if I know the teenagers around me, one thing that they do all have is app blockers on their sites. And they are actually quite aware of the addiction problems, the design, design for addiction.
Many people assume that social media harms teenagers, so Gareth asked Ghislaine whether she was expecting to find a smoking gun in the report.
The expression "a smoking gun" means evidence that proves something is true. For example, evidence proving that technology is harmful to young people.
But Ghislaine doesn't think this is true. Actually, she calls teenagers savvy, meaning that they have practical knowledge of technology and a good understanding of how to use it.
One example of teenagers being technologically savvy is their use of app blockers, software that prevents unwanted apps and websites from popping up and allows users to set timers which limit screen time.
And reducing screen time is important because nowadays most video games and social media are designed for addiction, intended to manipulate human psychology to make the user want to keep playing.
But it seems that today's adolescents are savvy enough to know how to use electronic devices sensibly. How else can we explain the fact that, according to this research, there's no clear link between using tech and mental health problems?
Yes, that's certainly the view of the research team leader, Dr. Matti Vuore. Here he is speaking with BBC World Service programme Digital Planet about an interesting and very modern term. See if you can hear it.
We often hear the term digital native. You grow up with a device in your hand almost, and then it's not a surprise that you are skilled in using those technologies to your benefit.
Did you hear the expression Dr. Vuore used, Sam?
Yes, he called teenagers digital natives, meaning someone who is very familiar and comfortable using computers and digital technology because they've grown up with them.
So maybe there are benefits to spending hours looking at screens after all. In my quiz question, I asked Sam about the average daily screen time for British teenagers.
I said it was B, 6.5 hours.
Which was the correct answer. Very savvy of you, Sam. OK, let's recap the vocabulary from this programme about the impact of tech on adolescents. That's young people who are developing into adults.
Today's adolescents are digital natives, people who are very familiar with digital technology because they've grown up with it.
If you are savvy, you have a good practical understanding of something.
A smoking gun refers to information or evidence that proves that something is true.
An app blocker is software that blocks pop-up apps and websites and allows users to set screen time limits.
And Designed for Addiction describes immersive video games and social media, which are designed to manipulate human psychology and make it hard to stop playing.
That's all for this programme, but if you're interested in the issues around digital technology and want to find out more, then why not visit the BBC Digital Planet website or follow them on their Twitter handle @DigitalPlanet.
Bye for now.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Rob.
And I'm Neil. Hello.
Hello, Neil. Now, Neil, could I borrow your phone charger, please? My phone's just died.
I don't think my charger's compatible with your phone. Compatible means when you can use things together. I'm afraid there'll be no status updates for you today then, Rob.
Oh, dear. I can't believe it's run out of power already.
Well, you shouldn't have bought a state-of-the-art phone. It's a big drain on the battery.
State-of-the-art means something that has the newest ideas and features, like my phone. So I should have stuck with a dinosaur, like yours, Neil?
Ah, dinosaur here means something that is outdated. You can laugh at my phone, but it's got plenty of battery life left, unlike yours, Rob.
OK, well, I might just pop out and ask if someone's got the same charger.
Stay where you are. We're recording a programme.
Oh.
And today's show is, you guessed it, all about phones.
Yes, that's right, Neil. And we're also talking about wireless furniture.
I beg your pardon?
Yes, furniture with built-in wireless charging technology, like a coffee table. Built-in means the technology is included as part of the table. So you just pop your phone on the table and technology does the rest.
Magic. And wireless technology is the way mobile phones work using radio waves to send and receive data. So that's what we need, a desk with a built-in charging spot for both our phones. But would it be compatible for both of them?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I don't have the answer. But can you tell me the answer to this question? What do modern phone batteries contain? Is it A, nickel, B, lithium, or C, lead acid?
Well, lead acid sounds dangerous, so I think it's either nickel or lithium. I'll go with lithium.
OK, well, we'll find out if you're right or wrong later on. But now let's listen to journalist Daisy Buchanan, who thinks that mobile phones have stopped us having conversations. And listen out for a phrase that means it's unlikely to happen soon.
I was thinking yesterday how it used to be, you'd sort of go into a cafe or a pub maybe and look for where the loos are, but now the first thing you're looking for is sockets to try and find where you can charge if you're having
or
an
someone with the
emergency.
same charger as you.
And maybe with this, I might be being naive. I suspect I am, especially with IKEA's new wireless charging furniture. But maybe if our batteries die a bit more frequently, we are going to look up a bit more and have a few more conversations. I'm not holding my breath, but you can but hope.
Daisy said some really interesting things there. So let's listen to that clip again.
I was thinking yesterday how it used to be, you'd sort of go into a cafe or a pub maybe and look for where the loos are, but now the first thing you're looking for is sockets to try and find where you can charge if you're having
or
an
someone with the
emergency.
same charger as you.
And maybe with this, I might be being naive. I suspect I am, especially with IKEA's new wireless charging furniture. But maybe if our batteries die a bit more frequently, we are going to look up a bit more and have a few more conversations. I'm not holding my breath, but you can but hope.
So, did you get it? Another way of saying it's unlikely to happen soon is I'm not holding my breath. Now, Daisy doesn't seem keen on the idea of wireless charging furniture. She thinks our phones are stopping us from having conversations.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's true, isn't it? We spend far too much time staring at our phones instead of talking to each other.
Oh, sorry, what's that, Neil? I was just looking at my phone.
Come on, Rob, put the phone away.
OK, well, that's because phone functionality, that's what a phone can do, is increasing all the time. But let's move on now and think green for a minute. Are there any environmental factors to consider in relation to new mobile phone technology?
Let's listen to Fevzi Turkalp talking about the latest model of one mobile phone brand and find out.
They've taken the decision to make it a sealed unit, so no user replaceable battery. And I guess you're more likely then to say, you know what, I won't replace the battery, I'll just get a new phone.
So Fevzi says this new phone doesn't have a user replaceable battery, meaning you can't take it out and replace it. And this is a problem for the environment.
That's right. Environmentalists want products that are designed to be taken apart. Then they can be easily upgraded, repaired or recycled. But you can't do this with a sealed unit, a unit that cannot be opened.
And this means toxic or poisonous materials are often dumped in landfill. And you guessed it, that's really bad for the environment. Now remember, at the beginning of the programme, I asked you, what do modern phone batteries contain?
And I said lithium.
And you know your batteries well because that's the right answer.
Wow, what a great guess. Now, Rob, how about those words again?
OK, the words we heard today were compatible, state-of-the-art, dinosaur, wireless furniture, built-in, wireless technology, I'm not holding my breath, functionality, think green, user replaceable, sealed unit, toxic.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's 6 Minute English. We hope you're feeling charged up by today's programme. Please join us again soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, I'm Rob. Welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm joined today by Finn.
Hello.
Now, Finn, could you give us a smile, please?
Okay.
Say cheese.
Hang on. Oh, okay. You're going to take a picture of me with that smartphone. Well, hang on. Just let me comb my hair a bit.
Finn, you look fine. Don't worry about
not quite
it.
Right. Have you got a mirror?
No, I haven't. Just hold it there, okay?
Right.
Hold it there. Nice.
Okay, let's have a look.
Right. I'm going to save that now. Okay, that's it. It's gone to the cloud.
Oh, really?
Yes, we'll be able to look at that later on my laptop.
The cloud. You don't mean the one in the sky, of course.
No.
You mean the huge computers where companies like Apple, Facebook and Google store their users' pictures, videos and documents. You know, I'm a little suspicious about the cloud.
Are you?
Well, I just don't want lots of people looking at that picture. Mainly because my hair doesn't look quite right.
You're so vain. Anyway, it's too late now. But you look fine, so you can share it with the world.
Okay.
Think about those poor celebrities who've had their nude pictures leaked online.
Leaked. Now, this refers to pictures that were being kept hidden, being made available to the public. They were leaked to the public. Actress Jennifer Lawrence, who starred in the Hunger Games movies, was one, as was the singer Rihanna.
This incident has made people discuss the issue of privacy on the internet. Privacy means being free from public attention. And in this programme, you will hear useful words for giving your opinion on this subject.
Yes, the celebrities were very angry.
They thought they could keep their pictures private because they were in the cloud, protected by a password, a word or sequence of numbers that only they knew and which is required for them to gain access to what is stored in their name.
The US Federal Police, that's the FBI, have been investigating this to find the hackers involved. Hackers are people who understand a lot about computers and use flaws or little problems in the software to gain access to a computer file or network illegally.
Today we have passwords for everything, and we have so many devices like smartphones and laptops and computers. So I'm going to ask you a question about smartphones.
Okay, very good.
According to research, how many people had smartphones in 2013? Was it A, 1.4 million people, B, 14 million people, or C, 1.4 billion people?
Across the whole world?
Yep.
I think this has got to be C, 1.4 billion people.
Well, you'll get the correct answer at the end of the programme. Right, let's talk more about privacy or privacy online. People are more and more concerned about it. Listen to the advice internet expert Oliver Crofton gives us. Which word does he use to describe how you have to be when putting things into the cloud?
I think ultimately it's about being slightly savvy on what you put into the cloud. If you have a private or sensitive photograph or a contract or some sort of document that has public interest and that people will want to try and get, just think twice about putting it into an environment such as a cloud which you don't really have any control over.
He says people have to be savvy. Now that means well-informed and quite shrewd, thinking carefully about things. He advises us to be very careful before putting documents and pictures onto these websites owned by big corporations.
Yes, because he says we don't have any control over their computers. You don't know how secure your documents are.
Yeah, Rob, I can see why people are suspicious of these things.
OK, well, let's hear what the BBC technology correspondent Rory Cellan-Jones has to say. Well, Rory explains how some cloud companies are offering to make the cloud more secure. Which word does he use to describe this kind of security process? And it also means identification of the user.
Many cloud companies now offer an added layer of security called two-factor authentication, where users have to enter a code sent to their mobile phone, as well as a password to get into their accounts.
OK, the word was authentication. Now that's confirmation that someone is who they say they are. And the company actually uses 2 steps to do this.
Yes, after you try to access your account, they send a code, probably a series of numbers, to your mobile phone. So it's an extra bit of information that only you know.
we really all should be very careful about how we protect our computers and our tablets and our smartphones, things like that.
Talking about smartphones, let's go back to my question.
Okay.
I asked you how many people had mobile phones in 2013. Was it 1.4 million people, 14 million people, or 1.4 billion people?
And I said 1.4 billion, the big one.
And you are correct.
Okay.
Yes, by the end of 2013, about 1.4 billion people owned and used smartphones. And by the end of 2014, this number will increase by 25%. This is according to the research company eMarketer.
Wow, what a lot of phones, eh, Rob?
Indeed. Well, our time is up, so let's remember some of the words we've explained today.
They were cloud, leak, privacy or privacy, password, hackers, savvy, authentication.
That's it for today. Do log on to bbclearningenglish.com, there's no passwords, to find more 6 Minute English. Bye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.